inequality theorem. And it's very, very simple. In the middle of the notes on the first page, it says the triangle inequality theorem. What that means is, I'm going to go over the top thing in a second, but I want to touch base on the triangle inequality theorem first. What it says is any two sides of a triangle have to add together to be greater than the third side. For example, you can have a triangle and there's two different scenarios. You could have a triangle where all three sides end up connecting, and you can have a triangle where all three sides, one side is too big or too small to connect. No matter how you take this and twist it, there's no way that it's going to connect, because no matter what you do, it's still one side's going to be too big or too small. It's not going to connect all the way. The triangle inequality theorem says any two sides have to add together to be greater than the third side. So if you look, let's say this is 4 and this is 6. This side has to add together to be greater than any of the other sides. So for example, let's make this side 8. The question would be, you're going to have some questions later on, would this create a triangle with sides 4, 6, and 8? And it's really simple. You just have to be able to add any two sides add them together to be bigger than the third side. So for example, 4 plus 8 is greater than 6, so that works. 8 plus 6, you have to be able to do this for everything. 8 plus 6 is greater than 4, and 4 plus 6 is greater than 8. So yeah, as long as you can add any two sides of the triangle, has to be greater than the third side. Let's say this side right here was 11. And the question would be, would these two triangles, would these three sides create a perfect triangle? Well, 4 plus 11 is greater than 6. 6 plus 11 is greater than 4, but 4 plus 6 is not greater than 11. So what would happen in this scenario would be, this ends up being one of these situations where what's going to happen is one of these sides is going to be too big or too small compared to the other one. That's called the triangle inequality theorem. In the notes, I talked to you about range. In the middle, it says, what is the range that AC could be? I'm not going to really go over range right now. I just want to focus on the triangle inequality theorem and just the simple principle about that. Any two sides have to add together to be greater than a third side. Now, the very top of the notes, it says largest side, largest angle. Opposite for that, smallest side, smallest angle. And think about it. Let's say this is a triangle right here. This is the bottom side. The angle as this bottom side gets smaller, what happens to this angle right here? Well, it gets smaller. As this bottom side gets larger like this, what happens to this angle across from it? It gets larger. So the bigger the side, the larger the angle across from it that is creating it. The smaller the side, the smaller the little angle across from it that's creating it. So if you look at the example that I gave you, I say in a triangle this is 50, 60, 70, and you have A, B, C. What's the biggest side? If we don't know the length, I know that 70 degrees is going to be the widest angle, so the side across from that has to be the longest side. So the largest side is A. What's the smallest side? That's the side across from the smallest angle. So this is your biggest side, 60 degrees is your second biggest angle, so C is your second biggest side, and 50 degrees is your smallest angle, so B would be the smallest angle. And I tell you in your notes, the side across from your largest angle is your largest side, vice versa. Side across from your smallest angle is your smallest side. And then on the notes that you should have in front of you, if you turn to the next page, this is what I primarily want to focus on right now. It's called finding missing sides and missing angles. I'm not going to go over the area because I know that you all can find the area and the perimeter, even if it's just variables and numbers because you just multiply base times height. But what I want to do is I want to go over the 4 example problems. So for example number 1, look at number 1, and it gives you an angle that they're saying 2 times the number minus 3 degrees. That's how big this angle is. And then this angle is 115 degrees. The question is going to be solve for x. So what do you know about these 2 angles right here? I know that when I add this plus this, they equal 180 degrees because they're supplementary angles. So this plus this, 115 plus 2x minus 3 has to equal 180 degrees. Has to. Because they're supplementary. Or you can set it up like this. If this is 115, you also can know that 2x minus 3 has to equal, if this is 115, this angle right here has to be 65 because that's the only way you're going to get 180 degrees. So you can either set it up like this or set it up like this. Now the question is solve for x. All right, well, if I were to solve for x, let's it doesn't matter how I do it. If I do this one or if I use this, if I add 3, I get 68. 2x equals 68. Divide both of those by 2, the x is going to equal 34. Same with this. If I subtract 115, add 3, and then divide by 2, I end up getting 34. No matter how I set it up. Now the question is going to also ask you what, when you don't know what each one of these angles are later on, it's going to ask you, how would you figure out what this angle is if you didn't know this angle? If you knew x was 34 and you had to figure out this angle, let's say 65 was not given to you, and it said solve for this angle. Well, all you simply do is you plug 34 back into that x to get 2 times 34 minus 3, which is 65. 20, 40, 85. All right. Next one. What do you notice about these 2 angles on the second example question? You should have understood that there's complementary. Complementary equals 90 degrees. So it tells you in this angle right here, this dude is a right angle. That's what it shows you in the notes. So I know that this angle, which is represented as 4x plus 11, and always means plus, this plus this angle, which is x plus 4, has to equal 90 degrees. It has to. Now, since it equals 90 degrees, the question is going to be figure out each angle. Not just solve for x, but figure out what each angle is. So first, I got to solve for x. So if I were to solve for x, I'm going to combine like terms. 4x and x is going to give me 5x. 11 plus 4 is going to give me 15 equals 90. Minus 15, just basic math. 5x is going to equal 10, 5, 8, 7, 75. And divide both of these sides by 5 to get 15. X is equal to 15. All right. So that's what x is equal to. But the question is, what is each individual angle equal? It's not asking for x sometimes. You have to read the question. Sometimes it's going to ask you for what x is. Sometimes it won't. Now, the good thing about recorded lessons is if I just lost you anywhere during this, you can actually rewind this right now and rewatch this to make sure it makes sense to you. Go back if you're like, wait, I'm tripping. How did he get 5x plus 15 equals 90? Go back. Rewind it about 2 minutes and see where I went a little too fast and then watch it again. That's the rad thing about this. You can rewatch it to make sure that you understand it. And then you can email me right now as well, because I'm on my email right now. You can email me and ask me questions as well, besides our Zoom meeting in a couple minutes. All right, so x is 15, but that's not the question. The question is, what does this angle equal? This angle is 4 times x plus 11. This angle right here is x plus 11. All right, so 4 times 15, 2 times 15 is 30, 4 times 15 is 60. This is going to be 60, 71 degrees. This is going to be 71 degrees. This has to be 29 degrees because 71, 29 is 90 degrees. Also, that makes sense. Okay, 2 more questions. I'm going to see if you can set up the third question. What you should know is you have an angle bisector. You should have been taught what an angle bisector is last year in IM1. You know that whenever you have an angle bisector and it gives you 2 tick marks, this angle is equal to this angle. See if you can solve for x right now. Pause it and set it up to solve for x. Okay, now that you should have paused the video, you should have set it up like this. 4x plus 3. This angle is the exact same as this angle, which is 6x plus 23. Okay. Now, let's solve for x. Let's minus 6x minus 6x. Oh, this isn't going to work because this is going to give me a negative answer. So let's do this. I'm going to change this, and I'm going to say this is 6x minus minus 23, just so I get an answer that's actually going to work out. Anyways, this is going to give me negative 2x minus 3 to get rid of that, minus 3 to get rid of that. It's going to give me equals negative 26. Divide both sides by negative 2 to get x equals 13. X equals positive 13, but that's not the question. The question is, what would each angle equal? Well, I just changed this angle to 6x minus 23. And this angle is 4x plus 3. So 6 times 13 minus 23, that's what this angle would be. 4 times 13 plus 3 is what this angle is going to be. Okay, now the very last question. It gives you a triangle, and it says, how would you set this up, baby? No doubt. All right, how would you set this up? What do you know about triangles? All 3 angles have to add together to give you a certain amount of degrees, and you should remember from last year, all 3 angles add together to give you 180 degrees. Now you have to find each angle. Pause this to see if you can create an algebraic equation to solve for your x, plug that x back into each individual angle to figure out all 3 angles. Okay, now that you should have paused it, this is how you should have set it up. 21 plus 5x minus 10 degrees plus 4 times some number degrees equals all 3 angles equals 180. This is the first angle, this is the second angle, this is the third angle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine my like terms, just basic math. Here's 5x and 4x to give me 9x. 21 and negative 10 is going to give me positive 11 equals 180. There's your equation. Now, in order to solve for x, subtract 11, divide by 9. And make sure I didn't mess up my quick math wrong real quick. 21 minus 10 is 11. 5x, 4x is 9x. All right. Now to solve for x, you subtract 11, divide by 9. And once you get your answer, it could be a decimal answer. Who cares? Sometimes people get decimal answers and they go, oh, I think I messed it up. Not every single answer is going to work out nice and even. But once you get your answer, you're going to plug your x back into, remember, this was one angle. You're going to plug your x back into 5x minus 10 to figure out what this angle is. Once you solve for your x, I just don't have a calculator, so I'm not going to do it. X equals some number. Once you solve for your x, you're going to plug it into here to get one angle. You already know that this one's 21 degrees. You can find this and then plug it back into there 4 times whatever that number is. Those 3 numbers have to add together to give you 180, but it should because that's how you algebraically set it up. So that's what you're going to be doing for this lesson. You're going to be finding missing angles using algebra. And we are going to stop right there. This is the last assignment that you guys are going to be doing on Tuesday. I have you guys on Tuesday, not Monday because Monday's a holiday. On Tuesday, you're going to have a practice test. I'm going to give you a practice test. I'm going to explain to you what that practice test is going to entail today. Once we do our Zoom today, I'm going to talk to you about the practice test. And then on Thursday, you're going to take your test. I'll talk to you about how all that works. So this is the last assignment that you're doing today. And that assignment is at the very bottom of the notes today.